kind of jumping into this in the middle of the talk, but we're looking at an old building interiors video from, what is this, 2023. Just kind of hitting on the development path coming from these concepts that they were talking about. And we actually just went through this at the beginning of the video where he basically tells us, hey, this is all about us just getting ideas.
To use that as a content to inspire conversations, to find out what do we want to do for the game, what is cool for the game, and use that as the initial springboard for the conversation. So
I took that initial springboard back then, and I was the gymnast who was springboarding over the pole vault and like flipping head over heels, freaking twisting angles all over the place. They were still springboarding up to like the running start. Hindsight. We like to get ahead of ourselves, but we do see on the roadmap that building interiors are still a thing, as we just covered. You guys are all getting deja vu in the live stream. And we know that Arcorp is getting an update. So I figured we look at where this idea came from, and then we look at the Arcorp stuff, because this will be probably our first truly instanced PvE focused locations. They don't have to be PvE, but these will be locations that, much like our hangars, once you enter, somebody else can't come in behind you and ruin your day. So I think a lot of people are going to be excited for these, but it's worth seeing the history of how they got here.
We're looking through here
and we're talking about the underground.
Now, finally, we're going to talk about the underground. Now, this is, I think, one of the coolest spaces. So rather than just focusing on the positive axis of the building, we're going to look at the underground. Now, what this does, it means we can access a whole area of play space that doesn't need to be contained inside the building. So within a lobby...
Honestly, imagine if they could start... if they didn't have to instance all of them and some of them could just be servers. I mean, there's a lot they could do. Contested zones aren't instanced. They're just separated by an elevator. They could have so many of these underground facilities that are not necessarily split off from the game, but there's a lot of friction in getting to them to make them still part of the open world, part of that open economy and interaction, but not quite open to everybody to just snipe you from far away. Talking like cave stuff, sewers, all the goods.
We want the player to start to traverse down into these spaces, and these could be underground transit networks. They could be abandoned underground transit networks. This then could drive potential racing opportunities. So when we was doing this, we thought, oh, it'd be really cool. Like, what would it look like if there's an underground street race going on there?
With our hover quads, or our hover vehicles, I don't know if that's safe.
Also, there could be traversal opportunities. Like I said before, if the player wanted to go into one building, down, and then through, and then up into another building, what would that traversal network be like? Especially if we're thinking about, if it's an older part of the underground of a city, maybe it's less used, people have built up, that would instantly inspire.
Dude, this basically became, like, look at this. This is a sewer system in what I think anybody would assume is Arcorp, given the 4 planets we have access to. Maybe you could say this is Loreville, but nah.
By a whole bunch of traversal and investigation missions there. Or maybe there's an old aqueduct or an old infrastructure underground. This could be perfect for underground street racing or other racing opportunities. So in a nutshell, what we looked at is a blue sky investigation.
All right. So that was the underground stuff. To be honest, there's some really interesting other stuff in here. They talk about like buying apartments
in a way in which we could
being able to live in the city. I honestly think that this would be a good alternative to people who don't want to do base building. Maybe you don't want to live on a space station. You should be able to choose probably one of several mediums in this game, right? Nomad, you're just living out in the wild, living off a spaceship, living on a space station, living in an outpost, living in a city. And these concepts for living in a city are really cool because you start to think about the view you could have looking out at the city and seeing ships flying around and stuff.
Create a variety of combinations. So whether it's living spaces or habitation spaces or social spaces. And also here we're looking at, we want the players to eventually be able to populate the player-owned habitations that you see.
This would also be super easy to monetize. Just sell people apartments, whatever.
Here, like a first indication of how, the sort of dressing styles that you'd be able to do. Outside of something that's fairly utilitarian, we also want to do something that could be fairly high-end. So here we're just exploring some ideas about what a space could feel like on a different architectural style, and more generous windows,
They could at least sell the
interior
furniture,
spaces
right?
dedicated to more than just habitation. And these would be focused on other landing zones. So imagine you come across these in Area 18, or it could be when we come to Terra. And also, like I said, it could be informing future player-owned habitation architectural sets. Now, outside of the living quarters, there's also the social spaces just outside. And we want these to be more than just the corridors that we're seeing in the game right now. So these could be
This is an apartment straight out of Deus Ex. Love what I'm seeing.
layered social spaces. And these could also inform
That's Adam. He's right there.
advanced traversal routes for the player to be able to get inside these habitation rooms. So as we're talking through various
So
architectural
yeah,
styles,
there was a whole bunch in this about different segments, whether that be commercial, where you could find like office buildings and stuff in the inside, maintenance locations where you could maybe go in and do some hacking or run some maintenance repair missions. They talked about rooftops with landing pads and different things that you could interact with in those areas. All of these, I don't know to what extent they still want to do. All I know is they still have it on the 1.0 plan. But I think everything on the 1.0 plan is slightly scaled down from what we've been seeing over the last several years. So some restraint, I think, in our setting our expectations for this, but we can sort of get some idea of what it might look like by looking at the new Arcorp facility, the Undercity. Honestly, a little bit of a surprise. I think something that they needed to slip in somewhere because they know people can see. I think they recognize the panic people have about how dangerous Star Citizen can be. And so they took this panel called Beyond Pyro, which was all about star systems coming up, and they just kind of slipped in a segment about Arcorp because they really wanted to make sure, hey guys, we're definitely not forgetting you guys who want to have that cut off content. Also, Arcorp is really boring and like doesn't have much ground locations, so they need to throw something in there. And so this is, I guess, what they're going for. Can you play this video, please? Arcorp. Yeah, this was totally like everybody just kind of was looking at this and being like, okay, what exactly is this? I think we all were thinking building interiors, but we weren't sure how. Most of us were probably just seeing rain and kind of our minds were going numb. Rain and Arcorp. Hey, there's more.
Now, speaking of gameplay in landing zones, let's leave Levski for now. And let's jump to rainy Arcorp, which is missing the most gameplay spaces right now. So we're continuing the Building Interior Initiative. We're adding additional districts to landing zones, which are gameplay focused. These gameplay areas will interweave with the landing zone, but ultimately will be independent. So for Area 18, let me introduce you to the Municipal Works. And this will be split into two locations. The actual Municipal Works, which will be an open world sandbox area for all players, and the lower Municipal Works, known locally as the Depths, which will comprise of several instanced levels. So, how do I get to the Municipal Works? The Municipal Works is accessible in multiple places in Area 18.
If you have to ask, then you don't belong there. See that dumpster? You just climb in there. Go do it. Go do it. Joke's on you. It's not an entrance. We got you to climb into a dumpster. Sorry. That'd be funny.
Some will be available to everyone, and some you'll need to unlock with mission progression. As an example, here's a map of Area 18 Central. And as I said, there'll be various access points throughout the landing zone, and some will be easier to access than others. These access points will lead to transit systems, taking you deep into the underbelly, eventually reaching the municipal works. And the municipal works will have spaces like...
Pub, did you name your Redeemer the Dumpster? Is that because it dumps on everyone else because it's such a good ship and it just destroys?
Maintenance, filtration, and the sewer network. Which is what we're seeing here. It's a very exotic place. So down here, it's an open world sandbox for you and other players, very similar to contested zones in pyro stations.
Immediately just triggers so many people with that. Contested zones have... This is before we had contested zones in the game. They carry such a strong connotation to them now. I think in general, his point being was that they're not instanced, but they are free for all interaction. I don't think he meant that they are specifically focused on everybody shooting each other. It doesn't matter though. It doesn't matter because it'll be assumed until they get him into the game. Really, nothing they say about this is going to matter until we get to see with our own eyes how it plays. And I don't know. I mean, we got to see how it plays. Because, yes, it is a sandbox area between the city center and the supposed instanced locations. Is that a bad idea? Can people still intercept you before you get to the instance? Yeah. Are they going to do anything to make that not such a bad possibility? I don't know. There are a lot of ways that they could minimize that. But it is interesting having this sandbox area that has instances shooting off of it. That sounds like a pretty typical way to make stuff like this happen. But Star Citizen is suffering from a couple different complications that make sandbox locations not exactly all that safe compared to what they're supposed to be. Just consider if you were a criminal, we are literally underneath Area 18 here. So if you did do something to attack other players or do something criminal related, you're going to have a tough time getting out anyways. But we'll see.
It's an area to do local missions, like exploration, repair, or even pest control. But the main purpose is provide access to the depths. And these will be instanced areas. So, what is an instance area? Well, an instance area works in the same way as an instanced hangar. And as the name says, it's a separate space for you and your group. But why do we...
There's that word again, exploration. I'm sorry, I missed it. What did he say?
But the main purpose is provide access to the depths. And these will be instanced areas.
Oh, it was before.
So, what is an instance area? Well, an instance area works in the same way as an instanced hangar.
Y'all get real offended by the E word, eh?
It's a separate space
A
for
is an
you
E-word.
and your group. But why do we want to do this?
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. It's on the screen. It's on the screen!
This gives us the ability to create tailored missions that will provide a mixture of content like combat or exploration or puzzle gameplay, and fundamentally allows us to design challenging, meaningful content.
Meaning! Let's go. I need some meaning. Really. Give me purpose.
All right, so let me illustrate.
I'm not joking, guys. I want purpose in this game.
Going over here. How the depths will be split by levels. Now, stay with me on this. We're going to rattle through it quick. So let's say you're in level B01. You're running a mission, you're having a great time with the curated content I just mentioned. But down here, you'll have to do a variety of content over a period of time and over multiple play sessions. At the end of the mission, you'll find an access point, which will bring you back to the landing zone.
So this is basically what they were talking about with the underground stuff from building interiors. They're just instancing off a part of it. You're still going to have the sandbox area that you can explore and look through. And then you'll have these packaged areas that you'll be completely cut off from everyone else when you want to go and do God knows what in its own environment.
And you'll do this loop multiple times with different mission content. After achieving the required amount of progression, your access level will be upgraded. So this time, you head down the access point elevator, and now it takes you all the way down to level B02, and you continue on with your journey. Now this is your new area with different mission content, new rewards, and a new access point back to the LZ. The same as B01, you'll do this loop multiple times. And you guessed it, eventually you'll get access to level B03, and we continue deeper. With each level you unlock, you access new areas for new mission loops. You'll access new, more challenging curated content and access better and better rewards.
So the question that comes up with instance content like this then is the repeatability of it. For sandbox locations, a lot of different things can happen because they're more open to the rest of the world. But I feel like both of these locations will benefit equally from loot being changed out, NPCs maybe being shuffled around a little bit, and different equipment and tools that you can bring along with you. But how repeatable will these be? I'm really interested in knowing. We don't know much about what this kind of thing would look like. This is different even from contested zones.
And this is what will form progression-based content.
Progression meaning.
So as I just described, was a very condensed version of an actual play sessions. But this still describes the unique gameplay experience. Landing zone areas which will offer long-term gameplay progression.
This is actually, that is a nice focus because one of the things we've talked about on this channel has been that there aren't enough things to do in a planet or in a planet's area. So you're constantly jumping back and forth between planets. And that should take a while. Like quantum traveling across a star system should take some time. It's just that CIG needs to give us enough stuff in an area that we're not constantly doing that. And this kind of starts to move us towards that. We see a little bit of the local missions that they're doing in Pyro. This hopefully would give you hours worth of content in a single city, so you don't even have to leave the planet. And if they keep adding things like this every year, then we start to have less and less reason to leave the planets, and hopefully that would continue. But until we see this, I guess we don't know how deep this is actually going to go.
So that concludes this section on gameplay spaces for Landing Zone. We're excited to show you more.
We're excited to see more someday. All right, so that was a look at building interiors, where they've gone, and how they have influenced the underground facilities that we will see in Arcorp sometime soon, TM. They're on the 1.0 release view. I think we heard about them maybe once in a monthly report at some point, but we really haven't heard. This is like, it's not even going to be a thing they really bring up this year. This is a long-term look out into the future, folks. But a look out in the future nonetheless.